K-drama cycle begins. Before February 1st ever appeared on the calendar, before the cryptic teasers, before the sudden confidence shift fans started noticing, a deal was already sealed behind closed doors. Quietly, carefully, and with no room for escape. Channel 3 didn't just sign LENAMIU, they locked them in. Industry insiders say the 5-year agreement wasn't rushed, and it wasn't reactive. It was strategic. Negotiated long before the public realized LENAMIU had crossed from popular pairing into something far more powerful. By the time fans were celebrating milestones, Channel 3 had already secured the future. What made this deal different was its structure. This wasn't a standard drama contract. It reportedly included priority casting, protected joint appearances, controlled project spacing, and something rarely granted so early, narrative continuity. In other words, LENAMIU wasn't just booked for shows. They were positioned as a long-term story the network intended to grow, shape, and protect. And then came February 1st. The Born to Shine reveal didn't arrive as a surprise to executives. It was a signal to the public that the next phase had officially begun. The timing was precise. The messaging deliberate. Suddenly, everything made sense. The increased visibility, the synchronized schedules, the subtle branding alignment fans had been decoding for months. What stunned many was how confident LENAMIU appeared going into the reveal. No hesitation. No over-explanation. Just calm ownership of the moment. That confidence, sources say, came from knowing their path was secured, creatively and contractually, for half a decade. Fans began connecting dots fast. Archived interviews resurfaced. Old quotes took on new meaning. Lines that once sounded casual now felt rehearsed, as if both had been trained to speak around something they couldn't yet confirm. The industry noticed too. Other networks reportedly attempted late-stage offers once LENAMIU's momentum became undeniable, but the ironclad nature of the Channel 3 deal left no opening. No loopholes. No temporary exits. This wasn't a flexible partnership. It was an investment. What makes the 5-year term especially powerful is the timing. LENAMIU is being locked in not at their peak, but on the rise. Channel 3 didn't wait for global saturation. They moved early, betting on growth rather than reaction. That alone signals how high the internal projections really are. February 1st wasn't an announcement. It was confirmation. Confirmation that LENAMIU isn't a passing wave. Confirmation that 2026 is only the beginning. Confirmation that the story fans are watching now has already been planned far ahead. And as the weeks unfold, one question keeps surfacing louder than the last. If this is what Channel 3 revealed, what are they still hiding? K-drama cycle continues. After February 1st, the silence became louder than any announcement. No immediate press tour. No rushed interviews. No overexposure. That, insiders say, was the first clue that LENAMIU's future was already mapped out. Channel 3 didn't want noise, they wanted control. Every appearance, every mention, every absence was calculated to stretch curiosity instead of burning it out. Behind the scenes, the 5-year deal reportedly activated its first real phase just days after the reveal. Private table reads. Closed-door concept meetings. Scripts marked joint exclusive. These weren't rumors floating online. They were internal preparations that only a locked contract could allow. What shocked staff members most was how early LENAMIU were given influence. Unlike rookie pairings that are managed tightly, LENAMIU were invited into creative discussions almost immediately. Tone, character arcs, even pacing of emotional beats. Sources say this level of trust is rarely extended unless a network is planning to build an identity around a pairing, not just a show. Fans began sensing the shift without knowing why. Their body language changed. Their answers became shorter, more intentional. The playful ambiguity turned into quiet confidence. Instead of denying or teasing, they started letting moments exist. Eye contact held a second longer, pauses left unfilled. It wasn't accidental. It was alignment. Industry watchers noticed something else too. Channel 3 quietly moved other projects out of premium slots. Time blocks were cleared. Budgets reallocated. A network doesn't do that unless it's preparing a centerpiece. Then came the whispers. One insider hinted that the 5 years wasn't about quantity. It was about evolution. Different genres. Different emotional stages. a long-form arc designed to let audiences grow with them instead of consuming them all at once. Romance wasn't the endgame. It was the entry point. February 1's Born to Shine wasn't branding fluff. It was a thesis. A signal that LENAMIU wasn't being sold as a moment, but as a presence. Someone to return to. Someone to trust with long-term storytelling. And here's the part fans didn't expect. The contract reportedly includes a blackout clause, periods where LENAMIU won't appear together publicly, even while working privately. The goal? Absence that fuels demand. Mystery that keeps speculation alive without oversaturation. That explains the sudden gaps, the missed events, the moments where fans expected content and got silence instead. Silence, it turns out, is part of the strategy, because while the public waits, the foundation is being built quietly. And when LENAMIU returns, together, it won't be to test the waters. It'll be to dominate them. And if this is only year one of a 5-year plan, then the real question isn't whether LENAMIU will last. It's whether anyone else will be able to compete once the full picture finally comes into view. K-drama cycle continues. As weeks passed after the February 1st reveal, something subtle but unmistakable began to happen. The industry itself started adjusting around LENAMIU. Casting rumors stalled. Competing networks delayed announcements. Projects that were once almost confirmed suddenly went quiet. That's when insiders began using a different word behind closed doors: protected. LENAMIU weren't just signed, they were insulated. Channel 3's 5-year framework reportedly included priority scheduling, veto rights over overlapping romantic pairings, and a long-term image roadmap designed to prevent burnout or overexposure. This wasn't about chasing trends. It was about owning one. Fans noticed the way media coverage shifted. Articles stopped asking if they would work together again. Instead, headlines asked when. Their few public moments felt deliberate. A glance caught on camera. A shared laugh during a group appearance. No confirmations, just enough to keep conversations alive without giving anything away. The kind of restraint that suggests confidence. Then came the first internal screening. According to sources, early footage from their upcoming project left executives unusually quiet. No applause. No overpraise. Just long pauses, the kind that happen when something lands heavier than expected. One staff member reportedly said it didn't feel like watching chemistry being built. It felt like watching chemistry being remembered. That reaction changed everything. Plans expanded. What was once a single flagship project began to branch into phases. Discussions of a follow-up storyline before the first even aired. Cross-platform storytelling. International distribution talks happening far earlier than normal. And still, Channel 3 said nothing. Because the power wasn't in the reveal anymore. It was in the waiting. Fans began connecting dots on their own. Matching timelines. Similar phrasing in separate interviews. The same answer repeated months apart. It wasn't coincidence, it was coordination. Even the skeptics softened. This didn't feel forced. It didn't feel rushed. It felt inevitable. And that may be the most dangerous part of all. By the time the public fully realizes what Channel 3 secured with that 5-year deal, LENAMIU won't be asking for space in the industry. They'll already be standing at its center, calm, composed, and completely untouchable. Because February 1st wasn't the beginning of their story. It was the moment everyone else fell behind. K-drama cycle continues. What followed after that quiet shift was not noise, but movement, strategic, patient, almost invisible unless you were paying very close attention. Schedules began to rearrange themselves around LENAMIU's availability. Directors who had once been too busy suddenly found open windows. Writers were quietly pulled into closed-door development meetings, tasked not with creating something new, but with building something that could last. The phrase that kept resurfacing was longevity storytelling. Inside Channel 3, the mindset was clear. This wasn't a one-season phenomenon. This was a multi-year arc. And LENAMIU seemed to understand that better than anyone. They stopped over-explaining. Stopped reacting to rumors. Stopped correcting assumptions. Instead, they let silence do the work. Fans noticed how their interviews grew more reflective. Answers were careful, but not cold. Honest, but never revealing too much. When asked about future plans, both leaned on the same language: growth, patience, Timing. It was subtle, but synchronized enough to raise eyebrows. Then came the industry whispers. A senior producer allegedly passed on a high-profile pairing offer, citing long-term alignment issues. Another project rewrote its ending entirely after learning LENAMIU's next appearance window. These weren't coincidences, they were concessions. The 5-year deal wasn't just protection. It was leverage. What made it even more compelling was how grounded LENAMIU remained through it all. No dramatic statements. No victory laps. Just steady work, controlled visibility, and a refusal to oversell what hadn't been shown yet. That restraint only fueled the obsession. Online, fan communities began treating February 1st like a turning point. Not because of what was announced, but because of what wasn't. No flashy trailer. No couple poster. No dramatic press conference. Just confirmation and confidence. Confidence that something real was coming. Confidence that it didn't need to be rushed. Confidence that when it finally arrived, it would speak for itself. And perhaps that's the most telling detail of all. Channel 3 didn't secure LENAMIU out of fear they'd be taken by someone else. They secured them because they knew what was about to happen and wanted the time to let it unfold properly. In an industry addicted to immediacy, LENAMIU represents something rare. A slow burn, a long game, a story that isn't chasing the moment, but shaping it. And as the months move forward, one truth becomes harder to ignore. This isn't about locking them in for 5 years. It's about giving them 5 years to become undeniable.